Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Film Room. I'm Jocelyn.
I'm Jaden.
And this is where we do breakdowns of popular films and our favorite basketball players and teams and scenarios from the lens of the four cores of performance. In today's video, we're going to look back on what was a pretty exciting NBA Finals this season.
How were you made for this moment?
A lot of hard work, a lot of hours in the gym. This isn't just a win for me. This is a win for my family. This is a win for my friends. This is a win for everybody that was in my corner growing up. This is a win for the fans, the best fans in the world. I love you guys.
Wasn't really expecting it with these two teams, with OKC and Indiana. I think everyone was kind of expecting OKC to be in this position, but Indiana, I don't know if a lot of people expected them to be where they're at. Yeah. So we're going to look at this series, again, through the lens of the four cores of performance, and we're going to start with physical. And I'll kick things off, and then we're going to throw it to Jaden. We'll kind of banter back and forth like we typically do. From a physicality standpoint, I think that, and I noticed this yesterday, I didn't realize that OKC had two 7-footers in Chet and Hartenstein. They had a guy like Lou Dort, and they had a lot of quick guards. I just think physically, they were certainly the superior team over Indiana. Your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. I think that they not only look like a bigger team, but they also play like a bigger team. Even someone like Chet, who's super frail and skinny and thin, his presence is made known. He had 5 blocks yesterday, which was a Game 7 Finals record. And yeah, Lou Dort's a big guy. Jalen Williams is a big guy. Shai is a 6'6" point guard on the team. They're physically clearly more intimidating than the Indiana Pacers team. That's not to say they don't have some dogs on the team as well, like Obi Toppin and Miles Turner, but as a collective, Caruso, OKC is just, their presence is made known physically on the court.
And I think what was cool about both of these teams is that they kind of had a classic big, right? Like both Miles and Chet, true. They can hit outside shots, but we weren't seeing Chet jack up a bunch of threes like we typically would with a team with, kind of that hybrid big man that can step out and shoot threes. It was cool to see him down in the paint, blocking shots, getting rebounds, altering people's shots at the rim. And I wonder if this is going to be a new trend now in the NBA, right? In terms of our team's going to go back to your classic big man.
That's an interesting. Yeah, I think you're going to see a mix of the two. I think that the classic big man, in a way, is coming back. You're not just having guys stretch out to play 5 out. You're still having someone in the paint, whether it was a Chet or a Miles Turner or Isaiah Hartenstein, who doesn't even play on the outside at all. I think that if you can have a mix of both the inside presence and the outside presence, then we're going to see somewhat of a return of that. It'll be interesting to see who kind of fits that mold. Jokic is one of one. I think that he's going to be playing on the perimeter and on the inside. Regardless, Wemby, you can see he still stretches the floor and plays on the inside. So, I'm sure that we're going to see a return to form for big men on the inside.
I think it's fun to see. I mean, it was a return to when I first started watching basketball. I mean, that's how teams were constructed. You had a 1 through 5, and height-wise and skill-wise, all of those guys tended to fit that mold. And it's cool to see this newer generation of basketball where you can have a KD or a Wemby or a Jokic even kind of running the floor and shooting threes and stuff like that. But it's also interesting to see how a team constructed in this way was able to be as successful as OKC was this season. Another physical thing, which we got into a good conversation about yesterday kind of during the game, and we can't really get away from, is Halliburton's injury, right? Which was a terrible thing to see. And, we both had the same fantasy team this year. I was kind of the owner. He was the de facto GM. He did all the work, really. But this was the first year. We've been playing fantasy for several years now. Yeah. And our team was decimated by injuries.
We had 3 to 5 season enders. We had DeJounte Murray, Kyrie Irving, Brandon Miller, a few other guys who just never finished out the season.
And major season-ending injuries, and as you said.
Yeah, DeJounte's was Achilles, Kyrie's was ACL. I know you're going to talk about it a little bit, but
yeah, well, and what we kind of got into yesterday during the game. So Halliburton had this calf tightness, right? And we all knew, because we saw what happened with KD, that this was kind of the precursor to a serious Achilles injury.
Yeah.
However, it's game 7 of the finals, right? Like, there's no way he's not playing, which makes sense. I mean, this is literally what you're doing all this training and all the preparation to get to. I mean, your entire career, your entire life as a basketball player is to get to this moment.
That moment. Yeah, right? I honestly, despite what anyone says, anyone in Halliburton's position is playing that game. So, yeah, hindsight is 2020. But regardless, if I was in the same boat, I would have played the game. If you were in the same boat, you would have played the game. Any other NBA player, if they were in the same boat, would have ended up playing the game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what we ended up talking about, your perspective was, and I'll let you get into it a little bit, was talking about, well, should the NBA shorten its season, right? Like, we have this rash of season-ending injuries, and it would seem to be in the best interest of the league to make the season shorter and easier on the players. And my counter argument was, for the last however many years, a lot, the NBA has had this season length, right? So why this now sudden rash of injuries as compared to, when the GOAT was playing, right? When Michael Jordan was playing, and those guys, sure, athletes have improved, I guess, over the last 20, 30 years. But I think the difference in my perspective is the amount of training that these athletes do from, like, middle school and beyond, right? Just the sheer volume of wear and tear on their bodies has changed dramatically. Mm-hmm. That's been the biggest difference from the 80s and 90s to now, because a lot of these guys that had these season-ending injuries were not old guys, right? I mean, like, Halliburton's 24, 25, yeah. Tatum, same age,
yeah,
right?
Like 26, 27.
DeJounte, like, so it's scary from my standpoint as not only a fan, but as a coach, right? Like, I'm a performance coach. I work with athletes, and part of the conversation we had yesterday, which I agreed with you, is that, well, you can't tell these guys to cut back on their training, right? And I agree, but are there other types of training that you can be doing, especially if you're starting to see the wear and tear pile up on your body, and if you're risking, like, losing a season or more? Fortunately, with science, these athletes are able to recover. Like, we saw KD come back and just didn't miss a beat. We saw PG have, different type of accident, but very freak injury. He was able to come back. So I think with science and technology now, these athletes are coming back. But what is the trade-off? And, we talked about it. So I'd love to share your perspective on it.
First off, like, you touched up on Halliburton's injury, like, prayers up for Halliburton, because injuries suck to see, but there was something different about last night's that when I saw it, like, I felt sick watching it, and I just know, the postseason that he had, the whole most overrated player title hanging above his head, and the run that he had, like, for it to end that way was genuinely, like, the most sickening thing to see. And we were, as basketball fans, like, we were robbed of what I think could have been, like, a classic Game 7. I honestly, down to the wire.
He started off so hot.
He had 9 points in 7 minutes, 3 of 4 shooting. And Stephen A. kind of talked about this. He said that when Halliburton starts off hot, he usually ends up having an amazing game afterwards. It's some, like, weird stats that are behind it. But man, like, to get to that point, Game 7. Like, we were going to have... this would have been one of the best finals, I think, that we'd seen in a really long time, probably since 2016. And as a Warriors fan, I hate that, but that's just the reality of it. But no, to what you were saying, I totally get it. Like, players are putting a lot of pressure on themselves to play a ton, train a ton from a very young age up until they get to the league. And then at that point, it's your job, so you're doing it all the more. My side of it was that I don't think, and you said this already, I don't think that you can stop them from training as much. And I also think that the talent pool has, like, I think that the collective talent pool has grown in the NBA. I don't think that there's, like, a discrepancy of, like, oh, guys are more talented today than back then. Like, I think Michael Jordan's the GOAT. But I think that as a collective, you have more guys on the floor that are more skilled in certain or in most areas than it used to be back then. And so in order to keep up with that talent pool, you need to be putting all the more work in from a younger age. And I know when I was playing high school basketball, college basketball, like, you have to put in all that work to get to that point. And I played with guys who, some went on to play college, some stopped after high school, and it's like the higher you go, the less amount of players make it, and so to keep up, you need to.
And not only
to
keep up, but if you are like these guys are the best of the best,
Yeah,
right?
you
So in
wanna be
order
the best of
to
the best.
stay ahead of everybody, you
Yeah.
have to be putting in more work.
So what I was saying is I don't think that you're going to stop the training, and the only way to pull back the injuries, and obviously it's not scientifically proven that injuries are happening because of the games played or minutes or whatever, but it's likely that even though the NBA had played 82 games for all of their seasons or whenever they started their 82 game schedule, is that sometimes you have to change the times when times are changing, and times are changing in terms of how much they're playing, whether it's AAU and like just camps and all of this stuff. And so the NBA kind of has to respond to it. But I know you're making points on the flip side. It's a business. And so if you drop it from 82 to 60, you're losing all that much more money on TV and stadiums and concessions, merchandise, whatever. And so it's tricky. I think for starters, because dropping an 82 game schedule might be difficult right now, I think starters is you got to look at the back-to-backs. I think that, playing 17, 16 back-to-backs in 1 year when guys are already sitting like Kawhi Leonard and some other guys, just take out the back-to-backs, maybe drop it from 82 to 70. But I don't know. It's tricky. It was weird in this playoffs seeing that many injuries. Like 3 Achilles tears in one play. I remember seeing an Achilles tear like once every 2 seasons, and now we got 3 in the same playoffs.
In the playoffs, yeah, which is crazy, right? So, and it's sad. As a fan, obviously, we want to see the best of the best guys playing, right? And you even look forward to next season. It's like, okay, well, now you've got 3 All-Stars who are going to be out for the entire season, right? That affects, not only the balance of power in the league, but just attendance and interest in the league, right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's a challenge, but as a performance coach, and this will be a good segue into the mental side of this series, which I think was really interesting to evaluate. There's always kind of physical work you can be doing. Like I talk about the 4 cores, and physical is the biggest one and the one that has the biggest surface area. But as you drill deeper into mental and social and spiritual, those start to have a more outsized impact on the game and on your game as you grow as a player, right? So one of the things that I thought was really interesting about this series was you had kind of 2 alphas in Halliburton and Shai, who were not like your typical kind of ultra aggressive, ultra assertive
definitely
superstars,
not.
right? Like the way they mentally approach both the game, like Shai is like the chillest guy. Maybe it's because he's from Canada. Who knows, right? That could be part of it. But
it's Canadian hoopers.
He's Canadian, right? These Canadian guys. But just his mental approach to the game. Talk to me about how he stood out from other superstars and like what he did this season in terms of MVP, Finals MVP. I don't know where he was in terms of scoring in the league, but
he won the scoring title.
He won the scoring title, right? So that hasn't been done. Those 3 things. I don't know. Someone's going to comment and tell us when the last time it was done. But
I think that the last time someone won MVP, Finals MVP, scoring title was Shaq.
Okay.
But then before that, I think it was Jordan. Which he did 4 times.
Exactly. We have a little conversation about who's the GOAT in our household. His younger brother seems to think it's LeBron, but it's not. Anyway, yeah. So just with his accomplishments, but just his demeanor, like tell me about what that says to you as a player who's still, you're still playing, and you're coaching players as well. What do you think about his, like how he approaches the game?
I think that Shai is the epitome of lead by example when you look at him as a leader. When he messes up, he's aware of it and he acknowledges it, but whatever he wants his guys to do, he's also doing on the court. He's one of the first MVPs we've seen in a while where he is just as effective defensively as he is offensively, and he works just as hard on both sides of the floor. From a mental standpoint, like Shai is approaching the game with a certain level of awareness and assertiveness and the ability to adapt at what the defense throws at him. He's not going to get upset or frustrated when things aren't going his way. He just accepts and adapts.
Yeah.
I think he just knows who he is, and he's confident in who he is, and the body of work was not only there this season, but he has averaged 30 for a couple seasons now. Like, I think he just trusts the process, and he's just very aware and assertive, and he leads by example.
I think that's a great assessment. And one of the cool things that I like about watching him play is that his emotional control, like, he never gets too high and he never gets too low. Like, he could be scoring 30 or have a game where he's scoring 15 or 10 or whatever it is, and he looks the exact same.
Yeah, his
like, it doesn't
response
phase
is
him.
always the same. Even yesterday, like in the finals.
At the end of the game.
Yeah, at the end of the game, Lou Dort's getting hyped with like a minute 30 left, and you can just see Shai going like this on the side.
It's cool.
And we were making jokes. We were like, it's okay to smile from time to time, like just laugh and celebrate and enjoy it, which I obviously he was doing, but his emotions do not get the best of him.
I think he's an awesome player to look at, and he's one that I'll be showing lots of film to, to our athletes in terms of that emotional control and just how important that is to be able to kind of slow the game down mentally for yourself. And that's kind of how he plays too. He doesn't play super sped up. He has ultimate control of the game. Like, for a guy that young, he had like 0 turnovers up until
the last few minutes
midway
of the game.
to the fourth, right? So with those stakes on the line, the game that he was playing, because he didn't have a great game the game before but to come back, to score when he needs to score, to have the assist that he did, and to have no turnovers, just shows the ultimate level of kind of emotional control when the pressure is the highest. Like, there's no pressure higher than a Game 7 of the NBA Finals for a basketball player, right? So, great example of how the mental game can just put you at that superstar level. And I'm sure there'll be talk about who is the changing the guard in the league now. I think there's no disputing that SGA should be the face of the league. There's talk about Ant and other guys, right? But I think in terms of this next guard of young players, SGA is it, and he's done some amazing things, and he's earned every single piece of it.
I had an interesting conversation with somebody yesterday about adversity, because they were talking about how Indiana had to play through adversity and OKC didn't. And that is not the case. Like, just because you're the best player or the best team in the league, you are at that point because of adversity. I understand that Indiana, obviously what happened in Game 7 with Halliburton, I get that. And I get that they were very much an underdog in that series, the New York series. But, like, let's not forget, OKC went 7 games with Denver. They played Minnesota, who were in the conference finals last year. And they played like a good Memphis team. No one really thought Memphis was going to hang with them, but they took on Jokic and Jamal Murray in 7 games. And like, this team is young, right? Everyone's talking about how young this team is, and you have to overcome adversity to get to that point. And like, the maturity comes from going through that adversity that they had went through, not only this season but seasons prior. When last year I think they lost in the first round. The year before, they might not even have made the playoffs, because I don't even remember seeing them a year before that. So, it was just an interesting conversation I had. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And I think this is actually a good segue, because we'll talk about Indiana kind of as we get to the last part, which is spiritual, and we'll talk specifically about belief. But I think what's interesting about the adversity for both teams, and I think what made them both so strong, was the social makeup of their teams. Like, this was the first finals in a long time where you felt like it was kind of next man up, like for both squads.
True, yeah.
Right? Like, Indiana, you couldn't tell from game to game who was going to be the guy. And they were built like that. And they didn't care, right? And you could see that they didn't care, which was really interesting. No one was kind of searching for their own shots. It was like, is it Nembhard? Is he going off? Great. Is it TJ? Right? Is it Miles Turner? Like,
Obi Toppin,
exactly.
Aaron Nesmith.
Exactly. Like, who's the open guy? Get him the ball, and we will totally support that guy moving forward, right? And OKC had kind of a similar structure. Like, we know that SGA was the guy, but J-Dub had some great games. And if Caruso was going off, or if Chet was going off, even Lou Dort hit a couple of ridiculous threes this game, right? Totally. And so I thought that was a great contrast, because both of these teams you could tell that they really liked each other. They had no egos, no agenda, and they would do whatever it took for each of them to win. From an adversity standpoint, yes, obviously Indiana had to go through some different things, but I totally agree that it's also challenging to be the hunted, right? Like OKC was the best team in the league all season. They're super young. I think they're the second youngest team to make it to the NBA Finals or something like that, right? So that is also a very challenging situation to be in, and to have the expectation that, okay, you guys are the best team, you have the best player, you guys should be winning, but they're also so young, and I think there was a lot of pressure on them. I mean, this is the first chip for that franchise, right? And the talk about, okay, does the SGA become the greatest player in OKC history?
I was going to ask you that.
Right? Like you've got KD, who's still in the league, still putting up 27 plus points a game. Can't be disrespected, but I don't think you can argue with it now, especially the way that Shai played.
He has the MVP that Russ and KD have, and then he has the chip, which they don't have.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly. Yeah, and he led a team that I think on paper is not as talented as that team that had Harden and Westbrook and KD, albeit not in their primes, and Perk. Who else? Who was the big guy on their team?
Oh, Ibaka,
right?
I forgot about Serge,
right?
bro.
That squad was a very very good.
And then
squad.
they had they had Cephalosha, and then they had a couple of good guys off the bench too. Yeah, Reggie Jackson off the bench.
Reggie Jackson,
yeah.
Right? Yeah, that was a very, very good team.
Yeah.
So I would put them up against this OKC team any day.
Yeah. Even the one after they lost Harden when they were back in the conference finals against the Warriors, would you take that team too?
Yeah, I would. So I just think this is a great example of how teams get along together, and the priority they put on playing as a team can really take you so much further, right? There's always the argument, and it was proved in these finals again, is that the team with the best player is usually going to win, but how you play with that best player is equally as important, right? So we talked about physical, talked about the mental makeup, we talked about the social aspect a little bit, and now I wanted to talk a little bit about, and we can talk a little bit more about Indiana in this regard, is just the fact that them making it as far as they did, I think, was based a whole lot more on their belief in themselves as a team, and their belief in each other.
For sure.
I'm glad that we were pleasantly surprised. Like I remember when Indiana beat Cleveland, and we were kind of like, oh, all right, it's like they'll probably be over next series, right? And then they beat the Knicks, and we're like, wait a second, Indiana's going to the finals.
And then they won game one.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, this team's actually for real.
This is legit. Like it took them winning game one of the finals for us to be like, okay, these guys are for real. But I think people kind of fell in love with them over the course of the playoffs, right? Which was cool to see, because I'll be the first to admit, I was like, oh, Indiana's going to the finals.
Right.
This is not going to be that exciting.
I thought the same thing. And honestly, Halliburton's story with the overrated player and everything this season, or this playoffs, was one of my favorite storylines in like recent playoff history. So I just think it's cool that Halliburton got called most overrated as soon as season ends, and he just goes out there and shows why he's not.
And does his thing. Yeah, I agree. And prayers for him. Hopefully he comes back the same, even better, and maybe we see a rematch of these two teams in the finals. Maybe he gets back to it. The way their team is made up and the way that they play, I have no doubts that with a healthy Halliburton, they can be one of the best teams in the East when he gets back. Next season we'll kind of see how things look.
So I got two questions for you. One of them kind of leads into the relational aspect of the finals, and then the other one is just kind of an outlook post-finals for both teams. With Indiana's injury to Halliburton and making next year kind of a wash, do you think that Indiana has missed their window of opportunity? Because Cleveland's going to get better, New York's going to get better. I think Milwaukee is cooked. I think Giannis is going to be gone. Boston will get better once Tatum is back. Do you think that Indiana has a chance to do this again?
The interesting thing is, like we just said, no one expected Indiana to be here now. I don't think anybody had really a timeline for Indiana at all. Like the talk in the East was Boston, it was Cleveland, Detroit's on the come up, the Knicks. I think Indiana was kind of like an afterthought. So for them to go to Game 7 of the NBA Finals now says to me that they've got in Carlisle, in Halliburton, Turner, Mathurin, Nembhard, and Nesmith, right? Like they've got a solid core of guys that it's kind of, not only is it next man up, but these are solid like players.
Yeah.
So I would think that if they come back with a healthy Halliburton in, I guess, 2026, 2027 season, TJ McConnell is probably the oldest guy in that team?
Yeah, he's the oldest. He's sitting at like 32, so it's not like crazy.
Not like he's ancient. Yeah, exactly. So if they can kind of keep that core together, who knows? So, I mean, you hate to say this, but with Halliburton being out next year, and if they drop, maybe they get a good draft pick or something like that, right? So they could improve by the time Halliburton comes back and they still have that core together. So my long answer to your short question is no, I don't think they've missed their window.
What about Oklahoma City's outlook? Do you think we're seeing the birth of a dynasty here? Because I remember I was watching Get Up earlier today, and they were talking about they're very San Antonio-esque, where you had Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker, and you just rotated guys in. You got Patty Mills, Boris Diaw, Marco Bellinelli, and now you have Shea, Chet, Jalen, and then you got your Hartensteins, your Carusos, your Aaron Wiggins, your Isaiah Joes. What are you thinking for OKC's future?
I definitely think they are dynasty worthy. Now, going back to what we talked about at the very top of the call, health is going to play a big factor in it, right? So hopefully everybody stays healthy. We've already seen Chet, and he looks like he might not be the sturdiest guy in the world, right? So he's going to maybe have to put on some muscle. Just be careful about his health. Shea is also not the biggest guy in the world, right?
Yeah.
So those two I worry about just in terms of the wear and tear of the season and staying healthy. You talk about San Antonio. The other thing they were famous for was load management, right? And ensuring that their guys are not being run into the ground during the course of the season so they're ready for the playoffs. If they were to take that type of approach to their young guys, and they're young, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. So, yeah, I definitely think we're in for an exciting kind of run with them. But the West also has a ton of young talent. And Luka, Wemby, Ja, guys that maybe don't have all the pieces around them yet. Look at Houston and the noise they made, and now they've got another piece that they're adding.
Yeah.
Which we had an interesting conversation about yesterday as well, in terms of does this put them further ahead or a step backwards? I'm not sure, and Denver is still good.
Denver, yeah.
Right. So yes, I think they're clearly the best team in the West. Yes. Do I think that scales could tip with the right move in the West? Definitely. And there's a lot of young guys coming right behind them.
Yeah, I'd agree. It will just be cool to kind of see their journey. I think that, right things click for them, avoid certain injuries. Definitely think that they could be kind of that dynasty-esque, as in they might not win it every year, but they're definitely the team that is always in contention or always there for a little bit. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Then my last question that I had for you, tied to kind of the relational aspect a little bit of the finals. Do you think that it's time for teams to start looking at a Golden State who won 2 years ago or 3 years ago, Boston who won last year, OKC this year, Indiana who was in the finals this year, to start looking at this and be like, okay, super teams isn't really the way to go anymore. It's more homegrown. It's more, building a group of guys who know and love each other and have been through the grind for years on end. Because you look at the past few champions with a few pieces here and there, they've all been there for time, and they're not super teams. Like, we haven't seen a super team since the KD Golden State Warriors.
Yeah. And even that team, I think the underlying question behind that question is, do super teams ever actually work, right? Because
Actually, that's a good question.
You know, the Golden State Warriors team, sure, you could classify them as a super team, but they won before KD even got there.
And they really added one piece.
Yeah. And KD's the ultimate kind of Swiss Army knife, right? Like he just put him in there, he can score efficiently, and any team would benefit from a guy like him, and he just does it at a whole other level. So I would question, like, Miami lost to a very unsuper team, Dirk, right? And the Mavs, because they had a recipe that worked on their team, and they play really well together. And I don't know, like, I think I can think back to the biggest example of a super team always goes back to, you know, this was before your time, before you started watching basketball, but Karl Malone, Gary Payton joined the Lakers team. They did not win a championship. Even Shaq and Kobe's Lakers got spanked in the finals by a Detroit team without
Chauncey
a superstar.
Billups and them, no superstars. Yeah,
exactly. So I think the argument about the super team, I think it looks good on paper, but I'm sure someone out there watching can maybe give us the stats on this, but I don't know if they ever actually work. And I think that this OKC run and Indiana's run and Golden State, a team that had no business winning the finals that year, I think they're just great examples of a system, players that know their role and play their role really well, and a team that functions well together and believes in what they can do and doesn't really care about what other outside people say. I think those types of teams consistently can perform well.
Yeah. I realized I threw Boston in there, and I know that Boston picked up Holiday, White, and Porzingis. I think I just meant that, you know, Tatum and Brown are homegrown. They've been there for 7 years. And when you look at a White or a Drew Holiday, you don't really think like super team.
You don't think superstars.
Yeah.
No.
So I think that they also kind of fit that mold in that just like they're putting the right guys around, two guys who had been there for a long time, who have a relationship with the organization. And that's a very good point. I mean, Brooklyn, when they had KD, Harden, and Kyrie.
Yeah, that was probably the last good example of that.
There are question marks with the injuries and the KD foot on the line. But yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. Like, do super teams really work as well as, you know, homegrown teams? And if they do, is the 1 to 2 championships worth it for like years of being kind of irrelevant?
Totally. Well, and on paper, the Suns from last season should have been, by all intents and purposes, a super team, right? You got 3 all-stars on the team. That can all score incredibly well. I mean, from a basketball fan standpoint, you realize that there were some kind of holes, some flaws in that theory. But if you just look at it and say you've put the best collection of talent together, then that team should have been amazing. But they clearly weren't, right? So I think that and that's a lesson for players out there, especially high school and college players that are maybe looking to join other high-level high school and college players. Ask yourself why you're doing it, and if the mix makes sense for the team, if the chemistry isn't there, if you guys don't have specific roles that you know that you need to perform on your team, all the things that we just talked about previously in terms of your own belief, the mental makeup of your leaders on the team. I would just ask yourself a serious question in terms of, are you joining, and you see this on AAU teams all the time, right? Like, you might have a bunch of elite level players on that team that go out and dominate, but are you guys really a good team, or are you a good collection of talent?
Right. My last thing, and I know you guys can see I'm wearing the KD jersey, unrelated to the finals. I just wanted to talk quickly about the KD trade. Happened on the same day as Game 7 of the finals, which is crazy. 2-seeded Rockets, young team, adds Kevin Durant. There's this and that between, was it worth giving up a young Jalen Green in the 10th overall pick for Kevin Durant, who still is a proven top 10 guy in the NBA, maybe top 5 if you want to make that argument. What are your first thoughts? What was your reaction?
Yeah, my initial thoughts, and we talked about this off camera, is that I don't know if it makes Houston better, and I don't know if they gave a guy like Jalen Green enough time to develop. Like, he's still a very raw talent. So now you've got an older KD paired with Amen, and I don't even know really who else is on that squad, like Fred VanVleet, Şengün, right?
Jabari, and Tari Eason's actually nice too. They just got a lot of good young guys.
Yeah, they got a lot of good young guys and KD. So that might be the right recipe. But it's weird because they clearly had a good recipe already with a team that, much like Indiana, I think a lot of people didn't think were going to make much noise, and they had a great regular season and lost to a more experienced Golden State team. And you had a raw Jalen Green, who I don't think was ready for the moment at the time, but he's clearly a talented player. So the jury's out for me. I would have to see next season. Like, I honestly don't know, but looking at it, I don't know if I would have made that move.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I agree with you in terms of not giving Jalen Green enough time. I'm not like the biggest Jalen Green fan. I think that Amen Thompson is kind of that guy that, if I was looking at the Rockets team, I'm like, this is our untouchable if we're looking at one. Like Amen and then Şengün second. But yeah, that being said, Jalen Green was still really young and it was working. Like, they were a 2 seed. Unlike Indiana, I don't think they were a fluky 2 seed, but I don't think that you were looking at them as like the second best team in the West.
Right.
I honestly don't even think you'd look at them against any other team in those Western playoffs and think that they could have won that series.
Yeah.
Maybe Memphis, but like Minnesota, Golden State, Denver, OKC, all of those guys, I don't think that Houston is there yet. But yeah, it will be interesting to see. Like, KD is KD. And I think that because of the Phoenix years, people are kind of forgetting who he is, and I'm sure he'll remind us. But yeah, it would have been cool to see the young guys grow together, but I guess at some point you got to make a decision of like, okay, do we want to help the young guys get over this hump? Like, how long do we want to wait till we're actually serious about contending? Because I don't even think next year with Jalen Green, the Rockets are a contender per se.
No.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Another thing that I noticed, and we can kind of end off on the trade with this, is that Miami was in high contention to get him. And it was actually Miami that chose to not give up certain players for KD that they were asking for. I think Kel'el Ware and Jaime Jaquez were amongst them that they were like not willing to trade.
Okay.
Now, I realized with the Tatum injury, with the Halliburton injury,
the East is
if
weaker
Miami traded for KD, do you think that they legitimately could have been a title contender in the East next year? And why wouldn't they have like put their cards on the table?
My only thought is that they must have their eyes on somebody else.
Do you think that's a Giannis?
That could be another.
Yeah.
Right. That's my only thought. Is they've got another guy in the East who is, I mean, people could argue is more valuable than KD, right? Maybe not a more skilled player, but in terms of the cornerstone of your franchise for the next 10 years.
Yeah, you have more time with Giannis than you would with KD.
Yeah, he's already won a chip, right?
Yeah.
So that would be my only logic because, yeah, I agree. I mean, Jaquez is nice, but
I don't know. I don't know what Miami was thinking, but yeah, like, I mean, if you have your eyes on Giannis, then understandably so.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks again for tuning in, guys. If you want to learn more about the 4 cores of performance, check out this video up here.
Thanks for watching. Go ahead and watch our other videos, our other breakdowns of films and basketball, and we'll see you in the next one.